Welcome to Centerpoint's Dive In with Matt and Joe.
In this podcast, we're filling in gaps and diving deeper into topics and passages related to the Sunday messages at Centerpoint Church.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe. Let's dive in. Welcome to Dive In. I'm Joe, and I am here in the studio with a couple of fine people. I'd like to first welcome Matt.
There you did. You got it in there.
I said I wasn't going to.
You did say that you weren't going to do that, but you just couldn't help yourself.
I'm sorry. I really was trying to make a conscious effort not to do it.
I don't think you were.
Father, forgive me for I have sinned. Oh, I'm sorry.
And we're just getting going.
Well, so we've got Matt with us, so welcome. And we also want to give a shout out and welcome to Andy Needham, who's in studio. Welcome, Andy.
Whoop, whoop.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Woo! Caller in the studio. Love it. So glad that you're with us.
I am glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so some of our listeners had the opportunity to listen to the message this past weekend. Others maybe didn't get a chance. Why don't you share a little bit about who you are, how long you've been here at Centerpoint, what it is that you do, and your love for Jesus.
Yeah, thank you. We moved to Hooksett, New Hampshire in 2019, right before the world went crazy. And
Correlation, not causation.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out.
That's good.
And the we is my wife, Bethany, and we've been married, we'll be 23 years this month. So got married when we were 18 and 21. So we were
Seriously?
Yes.
It was 18 and 21.
Yeah, that's right.
Babies.
And we had kids right away. So we have two children, Josiah and Mercy. And part of what led us to Centerpoint, I actually knew the church prior to that. I'd occasionally come and lead worship and help connect different people to the church in the past, knew some of the staff. But we were moving with teenage kids to central New Hampshire. And I was, like, hey, here's a few churches that we might visit, and our kids connected here. And that was what kind of made the difference for us.
I love that.
Yeah. And so we've been there 6 years and been a part of this church through that whole time. Our kids are now away at college, which is crazy. And they're doing awesome. So I have been in vocational ministry for 25 years now, and that's wild. Been in a few different assignments and done a number of different things. I was a traveling musician for a while. I've always been a serial ministry entrepreneur, so I'm always starting something. Sometimes that was conferences or different things. And but my heart's been for the Church of New England, and I have the privilege of being friends with so many pastors around our region. They're my friends, and I get to serve them now through a ministry called 521 Collaborative. 521 being based on the parable of the talents that Jesus shares in Matthew chapter 25. And the principle there, which is true for our lives, but it's also true for churches, is that the master does not necessarily care how large a ministry is. He really is asking us to steward whatever he puts in our hands well and to use it for his name and for his glory. And so our focus is on helping churches think about renewal and then multiplication, and multiplication that being of leaders and of new churches. And so we want to see new churches. And we're kind of like the Chamber of Commerce. It's an interdenominational work. We actually work with some denominations and networks to try to help them think through how to be more effective in those areas. And it's been a really fulfilling journey to be a part of, again, entrepreneurial spirit, something new.
You do really good work, Andy. It's a thing of beauty to watch. And I've been able to participate in some small ways. I know, Matt, you've had some opportunities to participate with 521.
Yep.
What's that been like for you?
Well, and that's was one of the things that attracted me to Centerpoint 10 years ago is this church has such a sense of we're here on purpose, and we're not just here for ourselves, but we're here to be a part of God, what God is doing broadly. And so that just really attracted me, and that has continued to grow in the life of our church. A number of years ago, it was under a message series or sort of a moniker of CP4NE, Centerpoint for New England. We are in the heart of this city, of this region on purpose. And we want to see the kingdom of God in churches all over the place. And so we love being a part of those things. And so, seeing Andy, what you do and how you do it is such a beautiful thing. And the partnership in that just makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I'm excited about being a part of it, and what God's doing in New Hampshire right now is really cool too.
Yeah. There's been some relationships with other pastors in this area that have just been really important, and we're taking some next steps in how the friendship we have together, the mutual support we have for each other, translates into missional potency.
Yeah, that's right. That's well said. And I ditto what Matt said, Andy. It's not just what you do, it's how you do it. It's how you carry yourself in that. It's just a beautiful example of what it looks like to be led by the Spirit of Jesus. So thank you.
It's an honor. It's a joy. I love it.
So tell us a little bit about, in just a few minutes, your faith journey. Did you grow up in a Christian home? When did you come to know Jesus? I mean, it's clear that you walk with him now, but cue us in on that background.
Yeah, I always tell the joke, and my wife's had to sit through hearing this joke many, many times. But I grew up in a New England town that is so small that it didn't even have a Dunkin' Donuts.
What? That's offensive.
That seems unheard of.
It is. It does have the Dunkin' Donuts.
How do you
now.
get anywhere?
Oh, it does now.
You
It
can't
does.
give
It
any
does now. It
directions.
didn't when I was a kid. So
Go to the town and turn. I don't know. Just keep driving.
yeah. So yeah, and I grew up in a kind of typical New England church, 60 people, and my mom and dad were lay leaders, so they were volunteers in the church. My dad worked very blue collar jobs. My mom stayed home. I was the oldest of 4 kids, and they surrounded us with the story of Jesus in a lot of different ways. And I came to faith in Christ. I think it was like 8 or 9 years old. I got baptized, and they gave me a job in the church. I was the director of the overhead projector machine. That was the first ministry job. And I've never turned back. So, yeah. And there's a lot of pieces to that story. I think a few other people that have been really important to me in high school. We actually changed churches because there was a thriving student ministry about 20 minutes from where we were. And my youth pastor, Peter Vitello, he really became one of the most influential. He's the person that heard that I owned a guitar and said, you know 1.5 chords, you are now a worship leader. and
you came preloaded knowing how to do the overhead.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd had some experience, and I'd actually graduated to the sound system eventually, and then but yeah, just I will say that there's a lot of people in the journey that were willing to give me the opportunity to try things in ministry, and I think that forged a spirit for me in my sort of ministry side of my walk with Jesus, of being willing to say, like, I'm not risk averse at all. I think that, like, I will try anything. And I have learned, like, I'm not a great youth camp speaker. And the way I learned that is I tried it. But there's a lot of other things that I love to do in ministry. But in terms of my walk with Christ, getting married young, I mean, Bethany is just absolutely a firecracker in a lot of ways, but for Jesus, especially, it's what drew me to her. But we were young and married, and there was a lot that God had to do in my life. And this is obviously just the short version, but learning what real repentance looked like, seeing there was a real anger issue in my heart that had to get uprooted. There was a youthful addiction to pornography, and that's something that I've had to grapple with over decades and had to learn how to do. And God just did a lot of work, and he continues to. And to me, the greatest joy that I've been able to do a lot of really cool things in ministry, but knowing that the people closest to me, my dearest friends and my family and my wife, can say, I see the fruit of the Spirit more in your life now, 25 years in, and I want to do 25 more years of ministry. And I hope that continues to be true. And so, yeah, there's a lot more that could be said. I've been able to do some really fun things, but more that what God's formed in me has been the thing that I actually really get the most joy out of.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us. Yeah. And he doesn't know it yet, Matt, but he just voluntold himself that he'll be back sometime to share the full version of the story.
I think that's what I heard.
That's what I heard you say.
Yeah.
Yeah, listeners can't see it, but there's actually subtitles of what you're really saying. And what I read was, I would love to come back sometime and share the full story.
Sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So you had the opportunity to preach this past weekend, and we're making our way through the Gospel of Mark. So you preached on Jesus' prayer in the garden, and well done. Thank you for bringing the word so faithfully to the body. I'm curious, as you prepared for it, right? There's so much as we prepare for messages that doesn't make the final cut, but there's also so much that happens inside of us as God's speaking to us in preparation. So I'm curious to hear, as you were preparing, what were some of the pieces that really jumped out to you that may or may not have made it into the message?
Yeah, I think the things that I'm probably will mention made it into the message, but there were definitely things that were around that had to hit the edit room floor, which is what the purpose of this is.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the connection between the Garden of Eden and then Jesus going to the garden as the crucifixion is right on the horizon. There's so much there that I didn't even touch on, but brought into the message a little bit. I think that the other thing that I really tried to bring out in the message, but I think that the relational and the emotional, I think that this is one of those passages that you could, it's only a handful of verses, 10 verses, right? But to really enter into the scene, like Mark uses very direct language about how much desperation that Jesus was in and how heavy that was. But then also that relational, I don't think I'd actually appreciated previously that Jesus brought Peter, James, and John in there, and that relational thing, and how deep that really was. So yeah, those are some of the highest level things that kind of, I don't know, that really kind of just grabbed my heart through the process.
Do you mind if we unpack those?
Go for it.
Because there's so much meat in both of those. And as you said, you touched down on both of those points. But yeah, let's kick those around. Why don't we start with the first one, which is the theme of the garden. So you brought out in the message that Gethsemane. So by the way, listeners, if you didn't get a chance to listen to the message, I encourage you to do so. And we're talking about Mark chapter 14, verses 32 through 42 is Jesus' prayer in the garden before he goes to the cross. So you brought out that Gethsemane, this location, this garden where Jesus and the disciples are praying. That name actually means oil press. Help me.
Yeah, it's
oil
not,
press. Right?
Yeah, I was tempted to make a joke that it's Olive Garden, but it's not.
I don't know.
Jesus took his friends to the Olive Garden.
Buddy.
That was just there for the taking.
It was not the right part of the message. It was like
That's true.
the tone when I got
fair.
to yeah.
That's fair.
We're talking about being pressed.
Yes.
Indeed. Olive Garden.
Unlimited breadsticks.
Unlimited breadsticks. Well, listen, that's why they probably fell asleep, right?
Yeah, that's right.
They carb loaded.
Food coma after their carb loading in the Olive Garden. But I love that you could work that in now.
Oil press.
So oil press.
Yes.
Gethsemane means oil press, right? So contrasted with Eden, which means delight. So tell us a little bit about, as you were thinking through these connections, and you teased this out a bit, but let's tease out some more. This connection between these two gardens. So delight, and then the oil press, the pressing, the crushing that's happening here.
Well, I think that for me, one of the most central elements of that is that Eden, before sin enters the world, is this place where humanity and divinity dwell together without any obstacle and no barrier. Adam walked with God in the cool of the day, just this absolute intimate intersection of those two things, which, we both get to realize in part through Christ, but then someday in full. And in Jesus himself, and this was one of the things I pointed out, there is the two natures of Jesus that is one nature, which is that Jesus is entirely divine and also entirely human, which is one of these mysteries that we get to grapple with our human understanding.
Right.
And so what was broken in Eden through sin, which was that interdwelling of divinity and humanity, is reunited through Jesus as he goes back to the garden, and then ultimately at the cross will make a way for that to be renewed.
Well, and I'm just really struck by the way back into the garden is the way of crushing.
Yeah.
It's not a lollygag. Right? It's not a balloons and snacks on the way into this special place. The way back into the garden is the way of crushing. And Jesus has been saying that's how he's been talking about it. But here is, I like the phrase you often use, Joe, the embodied parable of the space, the presence where we're at. And so we're reminded that the crushing that he's about to experience leads to garden and brings that back online. But the way there, again, is crushing.
There's so much in this passage that we just don't even have time for on this podcast, right? But notice verse 32, it says, they go to Gethsemane. He says, sit here while I pray. So this is him and his disciples, okay? So notice, sit here while I pray, okay? He takes Peter, James, and John along with him, and he becomes deeply distressed and troubled. And then end of 34, stay here and keep watch. All the disciples, sit here.
Yep.
Takes the three with him. Okay, now you guys stay here. Then what does he do? He goes by himself. Going a little farther, he falls to the ground and he prays. Now, this threefold movement, this is so cool. This threefold movement actually symbolically represents the high priest entering into the most holy place.
Yep.
So the first step, entering the courtyard. Second step, entering the holy place. Third step, by himself, entering the most holy place. And so here's Jesus, the high priest, right?
Going where only he can go.
Only where he can go. But now it's not he's going to sprinkle the blood of the animal sacrifice. Now he's going to become the sacrifice.
The one being crushed.
Exactly. And through the crushing will come the blood, and through the blood will come new life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and along those lines, there's the sleeping, which is both, and Andy, you talked about this. It's the frailty, the reaching the limits.
I love the way you talked about that, by the way.
Yeah, that was fantastic. But I'm also thinking about there are other times where there's been sleeping, and each of those times tells us only God is doing this.
Yes.
Right? So when God was completing the human picture, Adam went to sleep,
Yep.
and out of Adam's side came the woman.
Yeah.
But God did it. I'm thinking about
Abraham.
Abraham fell asleep.
Yep.
And then in that vision, the animals being separated, God represented by the smoking scepter,
Right.
moving through them and forming that covenant where it was a covenant between God and people, but God saying, I'm the one who makes it real.
Yeah.
And will take upon myself the penalty of failure.
Yeah, exactly. The covenant curse he'll take upon himself.
Correct. And so those are a couple of the places that come online for me when I see the sleeping.
Yeah, I was thinking about this is another thing I didn't include in there, but Isaiah 40, which is like the pivot chapter of the book of Isaiah, where it's all been exile, and then all of a sudden this picture of return comes into
that's right.
in Isaiah 40. And the end of Isaiah 40 is, even youth grow tired and weary, young men stumble and fall, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagle. They will walk and not grow faint. And that, like you said, is a reminder that in the renewal of all things, this inability that we have to even stay awake will not be a barrier to us. We will experience what God is, because God does not slumber.
And even think
That's
back
awesome.
to that message a couple Sundays ago where I walked us through the very end of Matthew chapter 13, where he says, watch, or a variation of that 5 times in those 6 verses, right? Don't fall asleep. Watch. Stay awake, right? And so the immediacy of this story coming right off of that teaching is obviously Mark is wanting to connect those things there.
Well, and when you talked about watch, it was in a broad sense.
Correct.
This is in a specific sense.
Exactly.
But it's reminding us that same thing is at play beyond just those immediate people.
That's right.
It's at play for us, and it's cultivating in us an imagination for the call to watch and our own limits
Yes.
and our ability to do that in our own right. And God's got it covered.
Yes.
Because we're weak, he's strong.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think this dovetails so well into into the second point that you were saying kind of hit you in your prep time, which you did include in the message. But the gravity and the emotion in this passage, but we see it in the context of community. Why don't we touch on that for a bit here?
Yeah, I mean, Jesus often went by himself to pray. That was a very common thing that we see throughout the Gospels. And yet, at the moment where he's in this distress prayer, he brings Peter, James, and John with him, which I think is just really, I mean, again, there's the parallel of the tabernacle, which you mentioned, but there's also just this relational invitation, which, again, there's a lot of levels to experience that on, but one of the most simple levels is, do we do that? That's just one of the things that I kind of had to ask myself, like, am I living in the way of Jesus, in that in the moments where I feel the greatest distress, that I am inviting other people into that reality? Like that, like, don't miss the thing that's right in front of us.
No, I think that's right, Andy, because I feel within myself, and I see this so often with people, that when we're in our most difficult moments, we isolate.
Yeah, that's right.
And we pull away from others. We don't want them to see our vulnerability, whether it's in the simplicity of talking with somebody and they begin to get a little emotional and teary and they quick wipe the eyes like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cry. What? Those tears are there for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Let them go. And there's something about bearing witness to. And I think that's part of why Jesus was bringing them in, that they would be some who would bear witness to those dark moments. And even amongst each other now, there's something about having people with us, not simply to bolster us. There is a bolstering, there can be encouragement, there can be reminders of who God is, who we are, but there's also a bearing witness. I see your tears. Mm-hmm. They have meaning in this. And that to your point, Andy, that happens as we bring others with us. I'm also struck by these three guys were the ones that Jesus invited with him in another time on the Mount of Transfiguration.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it was these same three guys that Jesus said, come with me. The others were left behind down at the bottom of the mountain. They go up the mountain and they see the curtain being pulled back.
Yeah, that's
and catch a glimpse of who Jesus really is. You know, I'm thinking about, you know, when your kids are younger and you're just dad, you know, for us in the room here, you're just dad. But then they see a moment where you get up on the platform and you're preaching or you're leading or you're talking to important people around and the kids go, whoa, I didn't know my dad was like that. Really simplistic picture that's coming to my mind of here are these three, like we knew Jesus was awesome, but come on, let's be honest, we didn't know he was that awesome. Like he's talking to the big dogs. Rather, the big dogs are talking to him like he's all that. This is who he is. Of course, they wanted to stay there and not go back down. But those same three guys saw him for who he was in the garden also. So I was just struck by that, the tension that existed.
Yeah, so they literally and metaphorically see him and experience him in a mountaintop moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they literally and metaphorically experience him in the deepest depths of the valleys, like to quote the Psalm 23, in the valley of the shadow of death here.
That's right.
In his utter anguish. I love the way you tease that out, Andy, because Mark's gospel in particular is so emotive. It's so earthy in the way that it describes not just Jesus, but people. And capturing really the story so powerfully and palpably. And just the anguish that he's in here. So as he's teasing this out, right? So he goes, he prays, he asks if it's possible that this hour might pass for him, verse 35. 36, I loved how you talked about Abba and what does that mean? He says, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. He returns. He finds them sleeping. Once more, he goes away and prays, right? And then he returns a third time to pray. So this is just such a palpable moment in utter anguish and despair where this is Jesus's ultimate test here. And when we think about all of the characters that have come before him in the story, and they all have their testing moments, and some of them have multiple testing moments, like Abraham fails some tests, passes some. But here's Jesus in this ultimate test moment, and he passes the test. Not my will, but your will be done. And it's just so powerful to me. I know we're going through the Gospel of Mark, but it's so powerful how this is Jesus embodying the way that he taught his disciples how to pray. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about Matthew chapter 6, the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, there's a definite mirror there.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this is him living that out right here. This is his ultimate time of test, and he's praying for deliverance while submitting himself to the Father's will. It's just, there's so much here.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, it's sobering.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of pausing.
Yeah.
Right?
See, that's the moment that I didn't want to make the Olive Garden joke last time.
And this is why we didn't talk about unlimited soup and breadsticks and salad.
Yeah.
Because it is so sobering. As you're talking through that, Joe, I'm thinking about the other testing Jesus had in the wilderness.
Yeah, bingo. That's right.
So there he was in the wilderness. The serpenty one comes and tests him, and 3 times. And then we're told, I don't remember if we're told this in Mark or if it's in another account of it, but then Satan left him for another opportune time.
Yes, he did.
And again, I don't remember if that was Mark. I'd have to look. But here's another opportune time.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the time to get Jesus off the road.
Yeah. See, take, eat.
Yeah. And he's surrounded by garden.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So bringing us back to that place where surrounded by garden. That was a test. Gardens are tests. Wildernesses are tests. Gardens are tests. Will you trust?
Yeah. Place of divine encounter and invitation to
and
trust.
here's the Son relentlessly trusting the Father.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of chance to explore this, but another thing along the idea of Gethsemane being the oil press, I was thinking about is that, his followers were anticipating that Jesus would be coronated as the king.
That's right.
And how did they anoint somebody?
Anointing
As a king.
oil.
Was with oil. And so, in the confounding, not the way they expected manner, here Jesus, who will then be called King of the Jews and be crucified and lifted up, is in the place where the oil is made.
Yes.
Boom. That's a real-time hyperlink, friends.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't made that same connection until you were just talking that through.
Andy, that's awesome.
And then coming off what you were talking about earlier, Joe, kind of bringing us back to the valley of the shadow of death, Psalm 23.
Yeah.
You anoint my head with oil.
Come on.
My cup overflows.
Come on. In the presence of my enemies.
That'll preach.
Woo.
Yeah. Yeah, I it's like the bunch of little bing, 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 bing.
Oh, but guys, this is how the Bible
real
works.
time. Yeah.
This is how it invites us into wisdom.
Right.
Yeah, through all of these hyperlinks and connections.
And it's this revelation of him.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we're always being asked the question, will I trust him?
Correct.
Will I trust him? In both gardens and deserts, the question is asked, will you trust him?
Yep. When everything around you doesn't look like there's a way forward.
Yeah, and there's a lot where I relate to the three guys who fell asleep. I have to wrestle with my own lack and inability. I don't like it, but there it is.
Limits are like your kryptonite, aren't they?
Well, by nature, that's what kryptonite is. So, yes.
I think I only said this in the second service, but one of the things I think about, so I talked about how in falling asleep, there's a part of that does not necessarily mean that was a sinful act, that it was a shortcoming, that it was the limit of humanity, that there is a part of, in some ways the contrast of Jesus, who's able to go through in his divinity, and then the only human of Peter, James, and John, and that they fall asleep, and that we have to know that Jesus still loves us in the midst of our limits. And I said in the second service just that I think that that's one reason that a lot of our senior saints have such a sweet intimacy with God, because aging is one of the ways that we feel our limits. And as we sort of lose our, maybe it's tactile faculty or ability to move at the same speed, that there's actually a path to intimacy with God by having to come to terms with your limits.
Yes. That's really rich.
That's well said. And very true.
And I prefer hanging out with Jesus on the mountaintop. Like
bring your tent, right? Or build a tent like Peter asked.
Let's build it.
Yeah.
Let's stay here. And sometimes we can keep seeking after that thing when Jesus is actually inviting us into the garden with him.
Yeah.
And we go, no. Let's go back to the mountain. And he says, nope, come here with me. And there's also something about sleep that is a sweet gift. Now, Jesus didn't say, hey, come in here.
Yeah.
You guys have been working hard. Take a nap.
Yeah, you just ate all those breadsticks and all that salad. Right? Like,
Minestrone.
probably feeling
Third
it.
bowl.
All sitting on the same side of the table.
Well played, sir.
But they're like, we were made to sleep. Like sleep was given as good gift. Also. Anyway, it's multi-layered.
There's so much here. Yeah. Andy, towards the end of the message, you talked about the 3 Ps. By the way, just mad props for the alliteration, man.
It's the songwriter in me. It's just, it comes out one
By the way,
or the other.
you didn't know it yet, so I'm bummed you didn't bring your guitar. I was going to ask you to sing us out on this one. But you talked about the pattern, the prayer, and the power of Jesus. Maybe as we round out our time, why don't you kind of quick unpack each of those for us And then we can talk about some ways to embody this message.
Yeah, the pattern of Jesus, which is in contrast to Eden, where Adam and Eve run away from the Father in sin and shame and cover themselves. Jesus runs to the Father, and he does that with his friends, which we talked about. So the pattern of Jesus is to run to the Father with your friends. And then the second part of that is to love others beyond their limits, which we see Jesus do in this story. The second one would be the prayer of Jesus. And I talked about like the Abba Father. This is his intimate reality. Then there's the all things are possible through you, which is sort of an adoration, acknowledging who God is. And then finally, this submission. So boldly bring your requests and trust that God's will is better than yours. You know that. So both those things we see there. And then finally, the power of Jesus, which is that Jesus took on, and this is where I ended yesterday, was he took on the cup, all of the death, all the destruction for all humanity, and that we have the opportunity to live in the freedom of the one who paid it all. That grace is free for us, but it cost him everything.
So I'm curious for both of you as we round this out, as you hear those three aspects that Andy was bringing out in closing the message yesterday, is there anything in that, maybe one or two things that jumps out to each of you where you're at on your own journey?
Yeah, I think what stood out to me yesterday when you were preaching it the first time and then reiterating it again today, kind of that run towards the Father piece. For whatever reason, I'm not really even sure why. Right now, like the frailty of scarcity comes online for me really fast. And I'm trying to figure out what that is, but I get there really fast. Like there's not going to be enough. And I feel that a lot with my time and energy. And so anyway, I think where I received that invitation was, one, God is not surprised by that. And he's not even disturbed by it. He's not shaming me for it. Like, Matt, come on. I made you tougher than that. Suck it up, Buttercup. But
it's
an invitation to the way Jesus talks. So there's invitation for me to trust him with my frailty and weakness and inability, where I tend to be resistant to that. Not that I'm trying to prove to anybody that I'm all that or whatever. Just feeling the frailty of that scarcity, fear of scarcity coming online for me. And so it's just that invitation to run towards him in that. I don't have to run to a dark corner and hide until I get myself pulled together, but rather I get to run to the Father and submit myself to him, trusting him.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us, Matt. Thank you. Andy, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think that the love in the midst of limits, there's a quote that I shared yesterday, which I'll share here from John Onwuekwa. I think I said his last name close to right. But it really just summarizes how this represents the kingdom of God. And this says everywhere else in the world, the price of admission is your strength, your net worth, your value. This is the only place in the world where the price of admission is your neediness and your weakness. And that just shows the upside down nature of the kingdom of God, which, again, the coronation of the king happens through the crushing of a garden. This is such a backwards way. And Peter, James, and John may have fallen asleep, but they did have a front row seat to get to see the Savior in this place, the garden.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, when Jesus talked about the ethos of the kingdom, he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit."
Yeah, that's right.
Blessed are those who mourn.
Yeah. So I guess good news for our listeners is that they're listening to three really needy people.
That's right.
I can't speak for you listeners.
The needy club.
But at least for us, if you want to join the club, you're welcome to. The club is open, and the King's name is Jesus. So bring your neediness, run to him. Guard yourself up in prayer as you walk with him in whatever challenge, whatever test, whatever dark place you find yourselves today. And maybe you're listening to this, you go, I'm not in a space like that. Well, as we do this together, because you brought that out beautifully in this story, Andy, as we do this together, I bet you have somebody you know who's going through it right now. And so what would it look like for us to walk through those dark spaces together, knowing that we're not alone, knowing that he's with us, and that part of the way he makes himself known to us is by bringing his people alongside for us to walk it together, because you don't walk alone. Thanks for joining us, Andy. Thanks for being with us here.
Yeah, thank you so
First
much, Andy.
caller to join us live and in person, so thank you for that. And we'll look forward to talking with you next week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.